So I've started this journey of starting a game studio. And they told me from the very beginning, like, this is not for the faint of heart because it's incredibly difficult. And after being in the games industry for so long, I always wondered, how difficult is it? And now that I'm doing it, I realize how difficult it is. And it's fun and is character building and is very different from being a games developer, I have to say. So in this video, I want to showcase or share with you guys some of my experience so far being a founder, CEO, game director in my experience in comparison to being a games developer, and how both things sometimes help each other and sometimes are the complete opposite of each other. And it requires for you to be very much what they call a T-shaped person, I think they call it. Because you really need to actually learn incredibly fast on the job as you're going through it on a day-to-day basis. So without further ado, let's get to it. Let's get started. Hello, welcome to this new video, and if you're new here, my name is Harvey Newman. I like to share my passion for animation, for games development, and apologies first and foremost for the nose. I have a little bit of a hay fever situation right now. You know, pollen is everywhere here in Scotland, in Edinburgh, and things are not looking so good right now. So it's difficult to talk, it's difficult to breathe. So apologies if I sound a little bit different than usual. So having said all that, let's get to it with the video. Now this one is a bit different than the usual. I normally talk about animation for the most part, and I also talk about games development, but I thought it was incredibly valuable for me to share with you guys my experience so far as a studio founder, CEO, manager. There's so many things that you have to do in the beginning that you are a bit of everything. So I thought maybe for all those that are thinking right now that are either developers, experienced developers, or maybe indie developers that actually are thinking about it or actually thought about it, my experience so far in the best way possible. Now, I need to go back a little bit and tell you guys a little bit about this journey so far, but watch a video that I've done previously on I started a new studio called Proxima Studio, and is basically made up of experienced developers like myself getting together to basically have as much fun developing the game as it is to play the game. Because what happens in the AAA scene when you're working in AAA games for a long time like I have, you realize that after a while you feel like you're just basically grinding away your career, your years, and it doesn't feel fun anymore. And all the fun that you had in the beginning and the pride and I have worked on this game and you can tell people and you can be proud of it goes out the window a little bit. And also you feel a little bit like you're just churning out work. Sometimes, a lot of the times, especially towards the end, especially as you're becoming experienced, you don't feel valued. And also, a lot of the best games out there that actually are incredibly successful are not fun to develop on, right? So for me, certain games that shall not be named that I have worked in, even though people tell me all the time that, wow, it's incredible, I can't believe you worked in this game. For me, the feeling that I have is very much of like the development, the crunch, the grind, the stresses, all the battles that I had to do with people to get certain things done. All of that stuff is the stuff that comes to mind when people mention a game. And after a while, after a few years, it becomes a little bit taxing, right? And as you become older, it becomes very much all about where do I want to be at and what do I want to do? What do I want to do with my career? And especially when I started working in certain studios and making a bit of a bigger impact in the game, doesn't matter if it was animation directing or designing quite a bit and all that stuff, I realized that no matter how hard you work, the game is always going to be seen and has going to be recognized as somebody else's work, right? So if it is a studio, it's going to be done by a certain person on top, and that person is going to be the person recognized for the work that has been done. And because people are not really looking into the specific people within the development, normally the people know this person game, right? And that to me started becoming a little bit of an issue. All developers out there that are watching this right now know that you work incredibly hard, and sometimes it's as taxing as it takes time from your family, it takes time from your loved ones. It takes time from you actually going and hanging out with friends because you feel very much like this is a personal thing and you give so much of yourself to the project that you feel like you should be also recognized as part of the team. So because it started to become taxing, I thought, what if I start a studio with the people that I actually worked with over the years that I admire the most? We get together and we decide to start a project, rally over an IP, and have fun with it, right? And basically recognize the people that work with you as an equal, and everybody kind of just develops this in the best way possible, in the most enjoyable way possible, and without having a massive team. We want to be like about 30 to 50 people max, and making sure that we know who each other is and who and what is doing what, and to make sure that we have fun and we admire each other's work as we kind of progress through the game, because there's something to be said about hyping each other up as you develop in the game. When you see somebody else's work, if you're an animator and you see somebody creating sounds, you're like, wow, that's amazing. I wouldn't know how to do that. And because it's not in your realm of knowledge, so you're just amazed for everybody else's work, and that kind of like keeps you pumped to do better work. The best games that I worked on has always been that way, right? This constant hype, this constant teamwork, and you feel like you're together doing this thing amazing as a team. And I really like this team recognition, because even though I might have started a studio, I'm not doing this alone. I could not do this alone. I know that I cannot do this alone. It needs to be a team effort in order for us to deliver the best game possible. Now, I digress a little bit, but all that to say that we are situated in a really, really good position at Proxima, and I absolutely love it. But there is differences between the two things of being a games developer and being a founder and manager and a CEO and all these other things. Now, as a games developer, the very first thing that you do is basically try to make a name for yourself by working in different games, and this guy has worked on all these things, he must know what he's doing and all this other stuff. And after a few years, you start developing that, and you get used to the idea that people, certain people, the people that matter, knows about you and knows about your work and recognizes your work. It feels almost like you take it for granted after a while, at least it felt for me. Especially with YouTube and people recognizing me as the animator, YouTuber, gameplay animator, and all that stuff, it felt really good for me. And because you are in a bubble, because you are in a niche, both gameplay and also animation, you feel recognized, you feel valued, and I always felt blessed by that. I never took it for granted. Now, the big difference, as soon as you come out of that bubble and you start kind of like creating your own studio and creating your own game and all these other things, nobody knows you out there. Nobody. And it's actually very interesting because even people within the industry, even though you have done so many AAA games and as we have done achieved so much, people within the industry themselves that are publishers or are within the games industry, they actually might not know you as well. So I had to change my mindset of like, go to every single meeting, go to every single place as if people don't know you, introduce yourself and tell them about a little bit of your achievements, because I am very much of the mind of I need to downplay myself a little bit to keep myself rooted and grounded, because I don't like to big up myself, I don't like to big up my achievements. I had to actually start learning how to actually sell myself a little bit more so things start to look really good on words and on paper, right? So that's the first thing that I saw as a difference between being a owner of a game studio and being a games developer. Now, the second thing is about all the meetings that you have and the people that you meet and trying to raise funds. Those three things are very much intertwined. Now, as a games developer, there's always somebody up top doing a lot of meetings with different studios, and it sounds really interesting and impressive, but you're not really involved with it if you are the animation director, right? You're not really involved with it even if you are like the game director. Normally, the people up top having meetings are normally the CEOs of the company, right? All the CFOs of the company. And they are meeting with other companies, with publishers normally, or angel investors, to raise funds for the studio. And then they basically divulge the word to the studio and say, we've done these things and we talked to these people. And to me, I always saw that part of the equation. I'm like, wow, we met with this publisher and that publisher and that publisher. They have done amazing things. Oh, it sounds great. And that's kind of what I saw. And because you hear the news, you immediately think, this is a progress step, right? This is something that is positive and is a step forward, which is great, right? This is how you see it. Now on this side here, when you are meeting with the people and when you are presenting the project and when you are trying to raise funds, it turns out things are much less glamorous. They are very much about you trying to sell either the game or the studio, or talking about the team and yourselves. And then people are basically in the meetings, and even though some people can be incredibly excited about your project, they see so many projects back to back to back to back to back that you just one more project for them. So what ends up happening is that you are in the meeting trying to be excited, trying to be amazed, and repeating the same words all the time, while the people on the other side, the publishers, the people kind of like trying to give you the money, they normally look at it very unimpressed about the stuff that you're doing, and then they move away. But the thing is, they normally come out after the fact and they tell you how amazing your work is and how they believe in your vision and how the game looks amazing and things like that. But on the moment, you really don't have the feeling. And me being an artist, I'm used to having this feedback, right? Of like you pitch an idea, or you pitch an animation or an animation idea, you expect somebody on the other side to have some kind of feeling about, wow, this is cool, I feel you, I'm amazed. But that's normally the creative realm, because us as creatives, we get excited with the other creative's idea because you can almost see it, and then we can actually build upon it and become a soundboard, and this is amazing. But the business people, they're not used to seeing things that way. They are very much used to seeing things in numbers, right? Or potential, I should say. So if they don't actually see the potential of something, no matter how amazing the pitch is or how amazing the game is, it's not going to be enough for them to actually invest in your product. So I had to rewire my brain a little bit, and I'm still trying to do it, because I'm used to live in this realm of the creativity and not so much on this is why this is going to be incredibly profitable, because it's going to actually look a certain way and feel a certain way and play a certain way and use all kinds of like words and even the attitude needs to change a little bit so you can be a little bit more professional and present yourself in a specific way, right? Because you're not dealing with creatives, you're dealing with businessmen. So that is the second part of the equation for me that I'm really trying or having difficulties wrapping my head around it. And then third is when people tell me many times, this is not for the faint of heart. Don't start a studio if you actually want to like be at peace or like have a good life or, not be stressed. All these things. Don't start a studio. Starting a studio is no joke. And I heard them and I respect them, but I always thought I kind of have to see it for myself so I can believe it. Because to me, making games, I've been doing this for so long. I know how to make games from beginning to end. I've done the process of games for long enough, so I know it. What did it mean when they say that it's really complicated? So now that I'm dealing with this new world of business, now that I'm having to sell myself and actually sell a product and basically make it profitable and find the reasons why this product is going to succeed, is a very different way for me to see things. So because of that, because of the creativity, I'm finding it incredibly difficult. And the difficult to me, at least for my personal experience, comes from having to shift gears all the time. Because I'm spending like most of my time dealing with coming up with ideas, game direction, design, where are we going, how are we going to present it. And then on the other side, I'm like meeting with these people, presenting the project, where are we going, what are the exciting things about the project, and that is very different because I'm always used to just being creative all the time, but having to shift gears all of a sudden and having to meet people and having to actually sell things and stuff like that, it's like a massive like turn left, and then all of a sudden you have to come back and just do more of that stuff. And I'm not used to that. I'm used to dealing on the creative. Doesn't matter if it's YouTube, doesn't matter if it's animation, whatever. So I'm used to dealing with the creative, and it's expanding my brain. And for the first maybe year, it felt weird, and it felt like I was telling myself that this is not for me. But then the more I actually started doing it and it became routine, especially the constant meetings, the constant updates, the constant having to say the same thing over and over, it becomes easier, especially as you start like surrounding yourself with good people, right? So I have like a business advisor, I have an amazing producer, I have like a very experienced talent and developers around me, and all of that helps you to basically have soundboards outside of this business world that you can be like, well, I was thinking about doing this, or maybe what do you guys think if you present it this way? Would this sound good to you guys from a business perspective? And then basically once you have it refined, you can go ahead and just talk with this group of people and do the best job possible. There's actually one more thing that I'd like to add, which is you need to do more than you expected. I was watching the other day a talk by a really famous Japanese developer, and became like CEO, and just like really inspiring work. But he was saying how in the beginning he was doing everything, serving the coffee and coming up with going and buying meals for everybody, and also CEO, and also designing, and also doing all kinds of stuff. And I can relate to it now, because there is no set like development role that you can be like, I am this and I'm gonna go do only this, and I need to focus on this, and leave me alone because I need to do this thing right now, and that's it. It doesn't really work that way. When you're starting a studio, you have to basically be the person that patches the hole here, because then there's another hole over there, and you are doing different things. And right now I'm like animating, I'm designing, I am game directing, I'm coming up with ideas, I am like meeting people, I'm being the CEO, I'm going to events, I'm presenting the project, I'm doing all kinds of stuff at the same time. And that's what's needed as you grow the studio. Eventually, I'm pretty sure, and based on the people that I talk to and experienced people, eventually you start filling the roles that you are trying to manage, because you have about 20 different roles. You fill those roles with people that are incredibly capable and experienced, and then all of a sudden you can rest at peace and be like, okay, I don't have to do this. So for example, I didn't have a producer for the longest time, and I was doing all that kind of stuff. And then as soon as I got an amazing producer, all of a sudden I'm just meeting with him and telling him what's in my mind, and then he can go on and do the job better than I ever could. I was doing the best I could, but it was not great. And this is basically what you need to do, is just like kind of steer the ship for as long as possible with your own skills for as long as possible, and then eventually get the person that can do the job better than you, and then be like, okay, you take the ball, I'm going to concentrate on these other things that also are on fire and you need to fix. So it's actually a very challenging time for me. I've never been more busy, but the best thing that I can tell you right now is that all these things that we complain about when in games development, like the long hours, the crunch, the fact that you're no longer respected, the fact that people don't admire your work, the fact that you don't feel valued, all of these things that you feel like in a lot of times in games development, when it's your own studio, working with people that you admire that also own the studio with you, and you feel it, all of those things become nothing. They're not a problem anymore, because it's your own, right? So if it's successful or if it fails, because it can be both things still to this day. But if it's successful or it fails, at least you did it in your own way. At least it was your own. At least you did it because you believed in it, and you surrounded yourself with people that also believed in it, and you tried your hardest, right? And I don't think there's any shame on doing that. Doesn't matter if it's successful or unsuccessful, because as long as you're having fun, as long as you're working on something hard but that you believe in, all that extra work is going to pay off at some point. That is basically what my mind is, what our team minds is, that even though it's hard and we are all working incredibly hard, like, office hours, outside office hours, all kinds of stuff, but if it pays off, if it works out, it's going to be our own, and we did it our own way, and believing in the things that we believe in at Proxima, right? And this element of having fun while developing games needs to come true. It is coming true, and we all having a ball of a time just like coming up with ideas. Wouldn't it be nice if this and this game did that, and this film did that, and that TV series did that, and why don't we incorporate it with our game? All that stuff becomes amazing to me. And then seeing the people coming along and believing in the IP, believing in the company, believing in the talent is just incredibly fulfilling. So there's nothing better than this right now. I'm having a ball, even though I'm working the hardest that I've ever worked. So that is all I have to say when it comes to comparing development to actually owning a studio. So not easy whatsoever, but incredibly fulfilling. Now, if you're here still with me after all this time, I appreciate it. Consider subscribing if you haven't so far. Give it a like and comment below about your thoughts. If you're thinking about starting a studio, or if you thought about it, or if you had a successful experience or unsuccessful experience, or even if you're just a developer, right? Comment down below and tell me what you're thinking right now, because I do think there's many people out there that actually are thinking about this idea of starting their own thing. They perhaps don't do it for a number of reasons, and I'd love to know why. That's all I had. Thanks for my Patreons for supporting me every single month. And until next video, stay well, stay safe. Peace.